Hello, 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 and welcome back to the next episode of the Shane Walsh podcast. So, before I go any further, thank you to everyone who is watching up on YouTube. Yep, the podcast is available up on YouTube. So, if you head over to the Shane Walsh podcast, you'll be able to see, or Shane Walsh Fitness up on YouTube. You can see the podcast on that. So, you can click the link in the show notes. And thank you so much to everyone who is listening to this and on the podcast. So, this is an episode, a bit of a mindset episode. I think it's something that a lot of us have said and will say in the future. And it's one of those things that will stop you from going the way you want. So we need to stop saying you've fallen off track, or I'm on track, or I'm off track. And this is going to help you to break away from that stop start, that on off, and actually create sustainable change for you, which doesn't require you to start every single Monday. Because what happens is, if I'm on track, we expect the scales to go down. If we're off track, the scales has gone off. So, and we talk about Monday restarts. And today we're going to talk about these three little words that are keeping you stuck where you're at right now, which is, or those four words is, I fell off track. I can't even count. I need caffeine. So if you've ever said this to yourself, and let's be honest, a lot of us will have said it, that if you've ever said to yourself, I'm being good, or I'm off track, or I'm on track, whatever it might be, this is one of the biggest things that a lot of us don't realize is stopping us from where we want to go. Because restriction loves rules. Restriction loves this on track, off track language, because it keeps you coming back. The fitness industry loves you coming back all the time. It keeps you buying the next plan, the next program, the next promise of perfection. But the real change, the lasting change that many of us want, but are very scared of, because we don't know who we are without the weight. We don't know who we are without these food rules. We don't know who we are without feeling in control or out of control. And that doesn't come from perfection. It comes from consistency with this lasting change. And consistency is that dirty C word, which is this shiny object that scares the life out of us. And consistency doesn't mean everything is going to go right. Doesn't mean the scales are going to go down every single day or week. It means being very, very solid and showing up imperfectly and continuing anyway. Imperfect action is what you need, not being on plan. It means seeing food as feedback, not failure. It means using the scales as a metric of progress, not the only measure of progress. It means using measurements as another measure of progress. Your adherence, your energy, your libido, your mood, your energy, whatever it might be. But it means understanding that there are no good days and bad days, that there are just days, and you get to decide what you do with them. You get to decide. And that autonomy scares the life out of people, because I'm in charge. But it's funny, because we all want control. So we're in charge of where we go. It's just whether we believe we deserve it, which is another thing that stops a lot of us. We don't feel that we deserve the changes that we're going for. So that fear of success scares the life out of us, because we don't know who we are without these rules. We don't know who we are without the weight. So you get to decide where you go. You get to decide if the scales goes up, that you go and eat, because we feel out of control. But you get to decide what your next action is. We get to decide, right, we'll have 2 chocolate bars. What's the third one going to do for me that the last one didn't? We get to decide, right, am I going to go for a walk for my head, or am I just not going to do it because my mood is so shite? We're the ones that get to decide to go to the shop or just vegetate. But a lot of the things that would stop a lot of us is the mood. And then we blame ourselves and beat ourselves up for it. It's the same thing we do with the weighing scales. We beat ourselves up for it, for not being able to stick to it. So here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to pay attention to your language. Every time you catch yourself saying, I fell off track, or I ruined everything, or I need to start over, or I'm going to start being good today, or diet starts Monday, pause and ask yourself, what would I say if there was no track? Well, how would I talk to myself if this was just information instead of failure, in inverted commas? Then say that instead. It's a lot more powerful. And it's going to feel weird. You're rewiring years of conditioning. You're giving yourself grace to practice this. It's going to take years. And if you want support, I'd love to hear if that lands for you. So let me paint a picture for you. And I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar. It's Monday morning. You wake up. Today feels different. You may have gone away over the weekend. You may have had... You might be feeling motivated. You're determined. This time it's really going to change it. And you've got your meal plan printed out, stuck in the fridge. Your shop is in. Your prepped, your portioned. Your Tupperware Mary. Your water bottle is filled. Your alarm is set. And you tell yourself this week is going to be different. That you're going to stay on track. Monday goes ace, perfectly. You eat exactly what you planned. You got your workout in. You drink all your water. You feel amazing. You feel in control. Tuesday, tick, tick, tick. Pretty much the same. You're nailing it. You're nailing life. Wednesday, still good. Maybe you're a little bit tired from the early workouts, but you're committed. You're on track. Thursday rolls around. You've got a work dinner you forgot about, or maybe your friends text you about going out for a dinner or a lunch or a meal out, or maybe you just had a really stressful day and you're exhausted, or the kids just shit themselves. There's a bug going around at the minute, and a lot of clients are finding that their time isn't their own. But that's okay. It's managing what we can do, not what we should do. And that idea of pre-portioned food or making meal prep or whatever makes you want to cry and put your husband's head through the wall. So you make a different choice. You go to the dinner. You order what sounds great, not what's on plan. Maybe you have dessert. Maybe you have a couple of glasses of wine. Maybe you eat until you're uncomfortably full because the food is great, tastes amazing. And you haven't let yourself enjoy a meal out because you were doing dry January. And what's the first thought that pops into your head when you get home that night? I fell off track. So I may as well continue. So here's when it gets really interesting. And this is where the damage can happen for some. Because it's not just that one thought. That one thought triggers in a kind of like a domino effect. Like a house of cards. You take or a Jenga game. You take out the wrong piece and it falls. I fell off track becomes I already ruined this week, which becomes what's the point in trying anymore, which becomes I might as well enjoy the weekend since I'm starting fresh Monday anyway. So Friday night pizza is wine night and staying up too late to watch Netflix. So Saturday is brunch with bottomless mimosas, and then dessert you're saving them for a cheat day. Sunday is meal prep again and silent desperate promise to yourself that Monday you'll get back on track. Monday you'll do better. I should do better. Scales gone up. Oh shite. Monday I'm going to have more willpower. This is going to be different. Does that sound familiar? If you're nodding along to this right now, I want you to realize you're not alone. This is the pattern I see literally every single person I talk to, whether it's on DMs, when people come to me on a daily basis, or when people apply for coaching. It's the one thing that a lot of people struggle with. It's because when we start to beat ourselves up or we start to feel a little bit out of control, we get scared. And we blame ourselves for, why can't I get my shit together? I'm training really hard. I'm training really well. But we're still feeling overwhelmed. And then we feel out of more control. We don't know how to feel. Maybe we've had a busy year. And now that all that kind of stuff has died down, we don't know how to fill that time in. So we go to revenge time procrastination. That food is the only thing that we feel we deserve. And then we're like, well, why am I not making any progress? I'm training hard. I'm getting my steps in, whatever it might be. This isn't a you problem. It's not a willpower problem. It's not about being weak or disciplined. It's not a lack of commitment. This is a complete and utter language problem. And the language of on track and off track is literally keeping you stuck. So when you use the metaphor of being on track or off track, what you're actually doing is turning eating, which is normal, which is something you do from birth, into a binary choice. Pass or fail. A train that either stays perfectly on the rails or completely derails. There's no middle ground. There's no nuance. There's no grey. You're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. You're either being good or you're being bad. You're either on the train or on a fire crash on the side tracks. And here's the thing about this black or white thinking. It creates this all or nothing mentality, where one choice that doesn't align perfectly with your day, your routine, your plan becomes permission to completely abandon everything else. And more often than not, the plan that most people create, not through no fault of their own, it's not realistic to begin with. And one of the exercises I sometimes get clients to do is write out for a perfect week to happen with nutrition, what needs to happen, and they'll list 5 or 6 different things. And then I'll ask them, right, what for a good enough week for you to happen, what needs to happen? And they'll have 3 or 4 things. And I'll go, well, can you see why for a perfect week to happen, these 6 things need to happen all the time? So you need to be 100% on all 6 things. And they're kind of like, okay, I'm starting to get this. And then I'm like, okay, look at your good enough week. There's still 4 things that are on this list for you to get 100% right in order to be good enough. So our expectations of what we can do and inverted commas should be doing is what's tripping us up, not an ability issue. So they go and do the exercise again, and it comes up, right, for a good enough weeks to happen, I'm going to eat more regularly. For a good enough week to happen, I'm going to have protein with 70% of my meals. For a good enough week to happen, I'm going to add in an extra portion of fruit with my breakfast. And when they see it after a week or two of doing the good enough exercise, they start to realize this is a lot more sustainable. But then what can happen a few weeks later is they tend to feel like this is getting too easy. I should be suffering. And there's a little bit of a trip. But my job is to pick them back up. Because if we look at what has happened is it can kind of sometimes become like a bit of this cockiness can kind of creep in. I'm like, oh, I've got this after a couple of weeks. Or I've struggled with yo-yo dieting for 15, 20 years. 2 or 3 months in, I've got this, I've nailed this. And it can feel like we've got it until we don't. Because sometimes it can be no life events have happened. Or a big shock to our system has happened and we don't know how to deal with it. So the thing about this all or nothing or black and white thinking is it means that where one choice doesn't align perfectly with what your plan is, one cookie becomes the whole box. One unplanned meal becomes an entire weekend or a screw it or a fuck it eating. One day of not tracking becomes a week of not trying. Because if you're already on track, what's the fucking point? The best example I can come up with off the top of my head is if you have a flat tire in your car, do you go and puncture the rest? No, because you know logically. But logic doesn't win when it comes to food or weight loss. Because how we feel in ourselves, our body image, how we talk to ourselves, they're more important. And that's the emotional response because it is an emotional effect. This is what I call this pendulum effect of going from on track to off track. You swing from one extreme to the other, from rigid restriction being on track to total freedom or rebellion to being off track. And neither extreme is sustainable. Neither extreme is real. And lasting change actually happens somewhere in the middle. Every single time you fall off track and then get back on, you are enforcing a belief. And the belief is, I can't be trusted around food. I lack discipline. I am weak. I'm broken. It's my metabolism. I can't do this. I'm not worthy of this. There's something wrong with me. And that belief, that shame, that's what's keeping you reaching for the next diet, for that next quick fix, the next meal plan that you've Googled off ChatGPT, the next program. Because this will be the one. It's like dating. You have to date a whole lot of dicks to get the one you want. But eventually you get it. The problem was never the plan. The problem was never you. It was the framework that was set you up for a fall. So I had a client. Let's call her Rachel, for example, right? She had told me when we first started that she was on or off diets for 15 years. Okay. So when I asked her what on and off meant, she said, well, I'm either really good or I'm on track or I'm completely off the rails. And in a non-judgmental way, I asked her for how long the on-track periods usually lasted. She said a few days, maybe a week. If I'm really motivated, 2 weeks is my record. 15 years. And her longest streak was 2 weeks. Now, Rachel is an amazing human. Super intelligent. Way more intelligent than me. Incredible, successful business. Owns her own business. 2 kids. Manages the household. Manages the finance. Everything. So that idea that she somehow lacks discipline or is lazy is bollocks. The problem wasn't Rachel. The problem was that she was trying to stay on track with what was impossible to stay on track long term. Because the truth is, restrictive eating which is what is being on track. So your idea of what restrictive eating means I'm on track or I'm being good. That's the hardest part to hear. On track or on plan means I'm being restrictive. I'm being good means I'm being restrictive. Restrictive won't work. But if I cut out carbs, I lost weight the last time. Yeah, I know. But you put on the rest of it afterwards because you brought that food back in. That doesn't mean that food is the bit that caused the weight gain. It's because we've restricted something so much that we feel out of control when we introduce it back in. Being on track means it's unsustainable. You're so used to that language that it almost becomes your, hi, I'm Rachel. I'm off track. I'm a yo-yo dieter. It almost becomes your identity. These restrictive methods that we go for are designed to create short-term calorie deficits with no long-term success. The 50 client episodes that you can hear on the podcast, they're the ones that look at it from a longer term lens. There will be times where life cramps up and they have to stop. There will be times where they go out for a weekend or they go away for a couple of weeks where they need to take a break. The feedback is, if you're always on a diet, it's giving you feedback that something needs to change. And it's the mindset. You are not the issue. So here's what I want you to offer today. What if there is no track? What if eating isn't a train that derails? What if it's not a test or pass or fail? Some days you eat in a way that feels aligned with your goals. You feel energized, satisfied, nourished. Some days you won't. You maybe eat past fullness. Maybe you choose convenience over nutrition. Maybe you eat emotionally. We all do. You're human. Neither is a moral failure. Neither means you're off track. Both are just information. Both are just data. But you might be thinking, but if I stop thinking about being on track or off track, won't I just eat whatever I want all the time? Won't I completely lose control? And I get that. I get that fear. I really do, because that's what diet culture has taught you. That without those rules and those strict diet plans, you can't be trusted. But here's what I've seen over and over again. When you remove the track, you remove the binary of the good or the bad. You create space for awareness, curiosity, you create learning. Think of it this way. If you go out for a meal, have a few more drinks, you believe you're off track. The new thought pattern is, I had a meal out that looked a little bit different. I feel really full right now. I feel a little bit uncomfortable. What can I do that's going to nourish me? See the difference? No kick in the shins, no kick in the balls, no punch in the boob. Do you see the difference? One keeps you stuck in that guilt, shame spiral. So if you are looking at yourself after a meal out, starting to pick yourself and your body apart like it's a full-time job, that's shame and guilt. While the other one removes you from it, removes your identity, removes the shame, and makes you look at and say, you know what? What's the next thing I can do to support myself? What's the next thing I can do to act like the person I want to become? And it will take practice. And in this case, practice doesn't make perfect. In this case, practice means nourishing yourself, that you deserve to be nourished. When you remove that track, you remove the pressure of perfection. You remove the idea that one choice, one meal, one day, 1 week defines everything. You see the pattern instead of failures. You start to notice things like, oh, when I don't eat enough during the day, I tend to overeat. When I get really stressed at work, I tend to use food. Or when I actually feel better, I probably have more nourishing meals. These are insights. This is giving you feedback. Restriction will cause binges. Binges are feedback. Cravings are feedback. You do not create lasting change through white knuckling. Instead of I fell off track, I want you to use the language. I had a challenging week. I ate a little bit differently than I planned. Was the week that I had planned, was it set up for success in the first place? When you say I had a challenging week of food week, you're opening the door to curiosity. What made it challenging? You had nothing prepped. That's fine. Working late at night. So I had no food shopping. So if you look and zoom back and say, right, well, what can I do to change this if the same week was to happen again? I'd get a food shop in. If I'm cooking dinner on Monday, I'll cook double on Monday. So I have lunch there on Tuesday. So I don't come home ravenous. When you say I fell off track, you're slamming the door shut. There's no curiosity, just shame. Instead of I ruined everything, I made a choice that didn't align with my goals. I ate in a way that didn't feel great. This works because it keeps you in the driver's seat. You're not a victim of your choices. You're not powerless. You're a person who made a decision. But it's the next decision or the next one after that where like, right, I get to nourish myself. I'm going to have a nourishing meal. Take, for example, being away in London all last weekend. So away from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and home Sunday. Had 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 6, 7 meals out in those 4 days. Felt really sluggish afterwards. I struggle with IBS. So variety and rich food doesn't really agree with me. But I know, right, if I'm going out for dinner, what I'm going to do. Well, we stayed with one or like our siblings, both of our siblings, when we went over. Just got back into breakfast. So before we went out into London on the Friday, just the two of us while everyone was at work, we just got breakfast in before we left. That way it got us up until lunchtime. Had an amazing Borough Market fish taco and a bit of an apple crumble from Hummel Crumble. Even though we knew we were going out for dinner that night in this local pizza place, which was unbelievable. Saturday, straight back into breakfast before we headed over to my brother's side of the world. Thankfully, I was very grateful that my sister-in-law was like, we had stuff in for lunch, so I had that, went for a walk, brought them out for dinner. Straight on Sunday before going to the airport, had breakfast again. I went out for lunch and then went to the airport. And I'm not better at you for doing that. I'm not better at you for anything that I just described. I just have more practice at it. But there'll be times where I skip breakfast. There'll be times where I don't have breakfast. But the difference is I've taken my identity out of it. I didn't ruin anything. I don't need to start over. I wasn't bad. I wasn't good. I nourished myself after because I deserve to feel nourished. I deserve to be nourished. I deserve to feel nourished. So the big thing for us to realize is it's important that one meal, one hot day doesn't make a summer. Just like one meal won't make you a bad or a good person. You won't ruin everything by a couple of meals out. There's an identity piece between on plan or off plan. And diet culture and restrictive dieting loves you to stay in this. But if you're looking to lose weight, there will be days you emotionally eat. There will be days where you eat that little bit more. Not because it's failure, not because you're lazy, none of that. What's keeping you stuck is that on or off track language. It makes you believe that if you just found the right track, the right plan, you'd finally be able to stay with it. You won't. You're stuck in a framework that's not set up for you. So when you stop playing that game, you're going to see the changes that you're looking for. One day, one meal won't do shit. Like if you actually got a calendar right now and marked on it how many meals out you had in the whole of January, it won't be a fair sample size because January is a pretty dreary month, and zoomed out. So you're aiming for 3 main meals and a couple of snacks a day, for example. And you look at on your calendar how many days out are you having in your week or in across the month, and zoom out. You're probably having, on average, people have like 2 or 3 meals out across the week. I would say between lunches or whatever it might be. So across a month, you're having eight meals out of a potential 84. It's not a huge percentage, but most of us will hone in. But the calories are so much higher. They may have been higher, but as across a monthly average, they won't be that high. There'll be a low enough percentage. So every time you catch yourself with that language, take a breath in. What would I say if there was no track? Do I deserve to feel nourished? I deserve to feel nourished. On or off track gives us this illusion of control. In a world that often feels chaotic, overwhelmed, unpredictable, that sense of control really feels good. So if we start to feel out of control, we start to feel out of control in our body, our weight, and food is the one thing that we feel that we can control. That's illusion. It's not actually control. Flexibility. The right approach will teach you the way of weekly calorie average, monthly calorie average. What you do on average is going to get you to where you want to go. Imperfect action is what's going to get you to where you want to go. Remember, there's no track. There's just you showing up for yourself. You're not broken. The system is broken. And my job is to help you to get out of it. So if you want to see changes and drop this language for once and for all, pop me a DM or click on the link in the show notes and let's have a chat and get you away from this for once and for all. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you've enjoyed the podcast. If you've taken anything out of this, let us know.